Hey everybody, this is D Hunter, bringing another action figure review. Today, we're going to be looking at the McFarlane DC Multiverse Talon action figure. This is Talon from the comic story Court of Owls. Really excited to add the McFarlane version to the collection. Talon is a fantastic ninja. The Court of Owls has an entire army of Talons, so it's a great army builder as well. I got this figure from the McFarlane toy store, so let's go and check out the packaging. As you can see at the top, 22 moving parts, McFarlane Toys, ages 12 plus, DC Multiverse Talon. Here he is in the package. Looks like he has 2 swords, 2 knives, a collector's card, and a display stand. One side of the package, Talon from Court of Owls. Other side simply says Talon. At the bottom, got a bunch of credits, and there is a barcode, in case that helps anybody. And at the back side, here's Talon from the comics. So with no further ado, let's open him up. Now this is my single Talon figure from the bundle. I did place a separate order with 6 individual Talon figures. They haven't even shipped yet, which is incredibly disappointing, as it's been about 10 days since I placed the order, and they were definitely in stock when I placed the order. I'm sure they'll come eventually, but I was sure expecting them to ship quite a bit faster than this, and I refuse to do this review until I have the 6 loose Talons I'm going to open. So finally, my separate order with 6 Talons arrived from the McFarlane toy store. I ordered these guys on the 7/25 when they were in stock. They shipped on 8/11, 2.5 weeks later, and they finally arrived 8/16. It's been a good 3 weeks and 1 day since I first ordered these things, and they were in stock. It's not really that big a deal, but I'm really looking forward to Talon because he's a great army builder. And when I ordered them, it said they were in stock, add to cart, so I expected them to ship within the next couple days, like usual. But I was a little worried something like this might happen. This is why I placed my order with the Necron, Bane, and Talon bundles separately. That thing shipped really quick. McFarlane seems to leave it at add to cart a little too long, and then you have to wait till they get more in. They're still pretty fast as a whole. I've had a lot of people messaging me, wondering when I'm going to do the Talon review. Well, here it is. Alright, now that I got this figure out of the package, here he is with all his accessories laid out. He comes with 2 knives, 2 swords, a sheath for his back for the swords, and a collector's card and display stand. But before we take a look at those, let's talk about and check out the actual figure. So this is Talon. Talon is a weapon of the Court of Owls. The Court of Owls is an ancient underground organization that controls Gotham City. When something doesn't go their way, they send in the Talons. Talon is a great army builder, as they have hundreds, if not thousands of Talons working for them. But this is a very specific Talon. This one is named William Cobb. That being said, I still got 6 of these guys to open with the intent to army build them and have a generic army of Talons. So let's take a look at him. He's got that signature Talon head, those goggles, the sort of gold going around his head. The head articulation, it's okay. You can rotate around, kind of look up and down a little bit. It's handled better than the DC Direct Capullo one. He's got these knives across his chest, but they're all permanent in there. He's got claws on one hand, different on the other. He's got the forearm armor, no claws. He's got these sort of dart things here. Kind of reminds me of the Batman. Double jointed elbows, double jointed knees. Looks pretty good. One thing I find very odd, he's got the sheath here, which obviously is made to hold a knife. Notice there's a hole in there, but he doesn't come with a knife for that sheath. So I'd say clearly they changed their mind somewhere along the way about his accessories. He's got this harness going across him, a hole in the back for his sheath there. Pretty cool figure. It's lean, army builder, assassin. And then here are all 6 of the Talons with all their accessories laid out. Army building at its finest. And then, just a closer look at his face and head sculpt. It has that signature Talon look. The gold wrapped around the head. Those goggles. Even though this one is based off the Court of Owls comic series, should work pretty nice to enhance your Gotham Knights collection as well. Now let's take a look at his accessories, and let's start off with the boring stuff. Here's his display stand. Typical McFarlane stand, black perfect circle. It says DC on the bottom. It's got 1 peg for the peg holes on his feet. Very thin, very basic. Here's his collector's card. As you can see, it's an image of Talon from the Court of Owls. Talon from the Court of Owls comic series. On the back side, there is a description. If you want to read that, go ahead and pause now. Now let's look at his weapons. He's got 2 swords, 2 knives, and then the sheath on his back. Sheath looks pretty good. A little bit of wrap around it. A little peg for the peg hole in his back. And you'll be able to insert the 2 swords. Then we got the swords. They're identical, a little bigger as they get longer. Handle looks pretty good. Of course, get the knife here. Nothing really spectacular, but nothing wrong with it. I do want to point out these items are very sort of gummy and rubbery. And that's something I used to always complain about. But honestly, they do that so they're hard to break. I think of the DC Direct Capullo Talon, how easy their swords were to break, and I'm actually thankful for these rubbery blades. Here's Talon with no weapons and no sheath. And here he is with the sheath on. Can't really tell from the front, but if you spin him around, I do have a little bit of an issue with the sheath falling off his back far too easily. I don't know if the peg needed to be a little bit longer or the hole a little bit tighter, but it just comes off a lot easier than it should. And another thing I want to point out about the sheaths, they're not completely solid. The top is completely open. You can slide the sword out this way, not only that way. At first I was kind of annoyed, thought that was bad, but honestly, it's done to make our life easier, and I do find it quite convenient. Here he is, holding his sword. And here he is, holding both the swords at the same time. And here he is, holstering his swords. And here's Talon, holding his 2 knives, which brings up that really odd holster he has on the side. He's got this sheath here, which has a hole in the top, obviously intended to hold a knife, but ain't no way this knife's going in that thing. Clearly they changed their mind somewhere along the way. Now that we've taken a pretty good look at both the figure and his accessories, now let's check out his height. From bottom to the top of his head, staying at about 7.25 inches tall, which can translate to about 18.5 centimeters. And if we go to the top of his little gold head wrap thing, about 7.4 inches tall. Now let's check out his articulation. Starting with his head here, of course, it can rotate from side to side. He can look up and down just a tiny bit there. Can tilt his head from side to side, but not too much. For the most part, you're just going to get a rotation. Shoulders on a ball joint, goes up more than 90 degrees, up, down, around, all that good stuff. He's got a butterfly joint between his shoulder and chest area, increase the range of motion, and cover up that gap. Bicep cut below that. Double jointed elbow, they go all the way in. His wrists can rotate, and it's going to be hinged as well. He's got a ball joint in his torso, rotate around, forward and back. Another ball joint in his waist, rotate around, forward and back, giving him pretty good range of motion in his torso area. Legs only seem to go out about this far. Not a ball joint, but a similar type concept. Rotation is minimal. They go forward about that far, back, not much. Double jointed knees below that. Then his ankles here, forward and back, rotate, tilt, rock, and to articulation. For the next part of this video, we'll switch to a Court of Owls setting. This is the court's elaborate, fancy elite of Gotham base and lair. A closer look at my court. They're judging, ruling, and controlling Gotham from behind the scenes. One of their Talons brings them the mayor of Gotham. He's holding his blade at his throat. They're making their demands. They explain to him that if his political views match those of the court, he can survive to see another day, and more importantly, so can his family. Now that they have the mayor in their pocket, they have the Talons bring them Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne has been captured by Talon. Of course, maybe that was intentional. Bruce Wayne is yelling back at them, arguing with the court. He refused to go along. The Court of Owls is using intimidation. They bring out their towels to intimidate Bruce Wayne into joining. That doesn't work, so they bring out even more Talons. And that still doesn't work, so they bring out even more Talons. At this point, Bruce Wayne is surrounded. He looks from side to side, weighs his options, and decides to go along. He will join their court. He will go along with whatever they need him to do. He's a very influential member of Gotham's elite, and they need him on their side. Little do they know, he's also Batman, and he just discovered where their base is. Later, Batman comes there after hours. The place is dark, seems to be deserted. The lights come on. To Batman's surprise, they were expecting him. The court, looking down upon him, casting their judgment. They bring out their Talons. Batman is not escaping this place alive. The Talons look toward Batman and get ready to strike. Batman realizes he's got a hell of a fight in his hands. The court and all their Talons close in on Batman. To be continued in the next issue. Now let's check them out. Next to some other action figures. Starting off with some other Talon figures. And here are all 6 of the McFarlane DC Multiverse Court of Owls Talon figures. Army building at its finest. That is one of my specialties. Here he is, next to the DC Direct Capullo Talon figure. They're essentially based off the same source material. As you can see, a lot of similar details. Start off with their heads here. Now, very, very different, but also very similar. Which one do you guys think is better? Drop me a line in the comments below. I'm probably going to give it up for McFarlane, but I'm definitely not hating on this figure. It's awesome. Biggest problem is it has 0 head or neck articulation. It has this sash full of knives, and each one comes out. That's pretty cool. You see they've got the same medallion here. The same thing on their wrists, except his claws seem to be not out like his. Same armor on that side. It is based off the same design, but I'm going to give it for McFarlane for making a better action figure. This DC Direct one does look really good, and is very articulated compared to the average DC Direct figure. And I did get 6 of these Talon figures also. Well, I got 7 if you count the unopened one upstairs. Then, here he is, next to the DC Direct Batman vs. Robin animated Talon. It's a lot more of a basic figure, but it's kind of expected. This Talon is in some sort of stealth or ninja suit from the end of the film when they attacked the Batcave. Earlier in the film, they looked a lot more like this McFarlane Talon. And of course, I did get 7 of those figures as well. Huge army of Talons for my Court of Owls. Now, speaking of animated versions of Talon, DC Direct also showed Talon from Batman The Adventures Continue. That thing was cancelled, but there's still a slight hope that McFarlane may release that. They did release at least some of the animated stuff DC Direct never released. Here are all 3 of the different Talon figures they've made. We have the DC Direct Capullo Talon, the McFarlane DC Multiverse Court of Owls Talon, and the DC Direct Batman vs. Robin animated Talon. I hope they release the DC Direct Batman The Adventures Continue animated Talon, and I hope they give us a Talon for the upcoming game Gotham Knights. Not sure if we should expect that or not, kind of thinking no, but it would be welcome, that's for sure. Here are all of my Talon figures. Got 18 Talons for my Court of Owls to command. Quite the army. And now, here he is, next to my Court of Owls. A bunch of figures that I thought would work as Gotham's elite. Most are dressed up, some look kind of old school, old-fashioned, and they all have a Court of Owls mask. 6 of these masks came with a DC Direct Capullo Talon, and that was a really cool accessory. 3 of these masks on the female court members, they came with a Mattel DC Multiverse Toys R Us exclusive Damian Wayne Robin. These things were not just an accessory for me, but they created a whole nother gang of villains for Batman to fight. The Court of Owls. Now let's check them out. Next to some other McFarlane DC Multiverse figures. The first Talon that I got came in a bundle with Bane and Necron from the McFarlane Toy Store. That thing shipped pretty quick, and I placed a separate order for 6 additional Talons. They were all labeled in stock the same day, but they just now arrived. Either way, happy to have them. finally have my Court of Owls complete and up to date. Now you've got to have a Batman for your Talon to fight. But which Batman is the right one? I would say the DC Rebirth Batman is the most logical Batman to fight Talon. He has fought the Court in the Rebirth, although I think this Talon is specifically from the New 52 encounter. This Batman is a little bit shorter than the Talon. He's one of the shorter Batman figures out there. But a modern Batman fighting a modern Talon, they go good together. Here he is, next to several more modern Batman figures. These are also based off the comics. And here, with some more Batman figures, also based off the comics. Then, next to several more Batman figures. These are from different various forms of media. Here's Talon, next to the figures McFarlane made from the upcoming video game Gotham Knights. The Court of Owls seems to be the main protagonist in Gotham Knights, so these Talon figures should be pretty cool with your Gotham Knights collection. Now let's check them out, next to some army builders. McFarlane has not released a lot of army builders. This was the first one that I used to build an army, and it wasn't intended that way. This was the Joker or Jack Napier from the White Knight. I head swapped and made an entire force of Gotham City police officers. This is the GTO, the Gotham Terror Suppression Unit, a specialized unit in the GCPD. Another armor builder of sorts would be the Injustice 2 Gorilla Grodd. I used the regular gold version as Gorilla Grodd, and 3 of the silver armor Platinum Chase variants as his Gorilla Soldiers. And here would be McFarlane's first true army builder, the Robin Crow. I've got 16 of these guys. Is it big excessive? Hell yeah it is. And while not exactly an army builder, I got plenty of the Drifter Bruce Waynes from the Batman. They were on clearance at Target. I got some from $5 to $8. Did some head swaps, got a bunch of random street thugs. Now let's check them out, next to some other recently released McFarlane DC Multiverse figures. Here he is, next to the Rebirth Deathstroke and the Infinite Frontier Scarecrow. And here he is, next to the Speeding Bullets Batman and Dark Knight's Metal Atrocitus. Then, here he is, next to the Walmart exclusive Gold Label Azrael and Batman Armor and Parallax Hal Jordan. Here's Talon, next to the Blue Beetle and Booster Gold 2-pack. And here he is, next to the Future State Superman and the New 52 Static. Then, next to McFarlane Toy Store exclusive Gold Label paint variants of the Arkham Knight Red Hood and Scarecrow. Here's Talon, next to the first series of Page Punchers. Still trying to track down the black and white version of Black Adam. And here he is, next to the Black Adam movie wave. Then, next to the Blackest Night wave, collective build Atrocitus. And now, here he is, next to Martian Manhunter, both classic and a rebirth. Here's Talon, next to the Target exclusive Crime Syndicate, Ultraman, Superwoman, and Owlman. And here he is, next to all 3 versions of Lex Luthor in his power suit. Then, next to both versions of the Dark Detective Batman. And now, next to Duke Thomas from Tales of the Dark Multiverse, and the Batman Who Laughs dressed as Batman. And finally, here he is, next to both versions of the Zernar Batman, and all 3 variations of the Infinite Frontier Robin. Now let's check him out, next to some action figures from different various companies, to see how he fits in both scale and style-wise, in case you want to know which line to mix him with. Since he's a McFarlane figure, they're typically the 7-inch scale. I'm going to start off my comparisons with some of the large action figure lines I collect, and work way smaller. But first, let's check him out with some of his McFarlane Toys brothers. In front of you are 5 different action figure lines, all from McFarlane Toys, all 7-inch scale. Then, next to some more McFarlane figures. These are from different various video game properties. And now, next to some Jack-specific wrestling figures. And here he is, next to some DST or Diamond Select toys. Then, with some DC Direct and DC Collectibles figures. And here he is, standing next to some NECA figures. Then, with some Mattel wrestling figures. And now, with some Jazzwares AEW wrestlers. And here he is, next to some Mezco 112 collective figures. Then, next to some Mattel DC Universe Classics and Multiverse figures. And here he is, with some Mafex figures. Then, with some Hasbro Marvel Legends. And here he is, next to some SH Figure Arts action figures. And finally, next to some Jazzwares Fortnite figures. Overall, this is a fantastic figure. Army building is my specialty, and this is the second true army builder McFarlane has given us. My only complaints about this guy is neck articulation. I mean, at least it moves, but you don't really get too much out of it. And then the sheaths on his back, they fall off too easy, just kind of annoying. Beyond that, sculpt and paint job are excellent. Articulation is pretty good. Neck could be better, but I totally understand the obstacles there. His accessories are pretty nice. 4 weapons. If I were to rate this guy, I'm going to give him a solid 8 out of 10. Some very minor flaws, but a fantastic armor builder, and definitely the best of the 3 Talon figures out there. So this is D Hunter. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you liked the video, press like below. If you have anything you want to say with the video, add to the comment section. If you want to see additional action figure reviews from me, press subscribe. I do appreciate when you do that. Once again, this is D Hunter. Thank you guys for watching this video, and I will talk to you guys real soon.